Hello everyone, if you'd like to see my version of the Diane von Furstenberg iconic wrap dress, stay tuned. Hello everyone, I'm Deb and this is DB Designs and Sewing Australia. Welcome to all my subscribers and welcome to anyone who is new. And a big thank you to those people who have bought me a coffee through my Ko-fi account. It is very much appreciated. So this week, I actually just got back from Melbourne, but prior to that, I made the Diane von Furstenberg wrap dress. Now that's the Vogue 2060, which is the knit version. And when I mentioned that I was going to be making that, one of my subscribers emailed me, you need to watch the Great British Sewing Bee episode 3 because they make that dress. And she sent me a link so that I could watch it. It's not always that easy to get in Australia. And it changed the whole way I was making the dress. So this is the dress. I'll start popping photos in. Really happy with the dress, really happy with the neckline. Now, if you watch the Great British Sewing Bee, you'll see that they put elastic in. They put elastic in there. Is there anywhere where you can? I know there's somewhere where you can actually see the edge of the elastic. There you can see the edge of the elastic. Now it is like swimwear elastic. So I used this swimwear elastic, not ultra stretchy, but a little bit of stretch. And I must say, this is the best fitting wrap dress I've ever made. Now this swimwear elastic is probably .9 or 1 centimetre wide. Yeah, 1 centimetre wide by the look of it. Have no idea where I got it. Because it's not that one, because that's 0.6 and I would know that. It's not that one, that's only 0.6 as well. And I have wider, which is 1.2, but it's a bit of a different texture. Looks like a sticky tape. So that's what I decided to do. Now I did a test piece to see how much I'd need to gather. You're not really stretching the elastic very much at all, only it's really to keep the dress in place, not to pull it up. And if you watch the Great British Sewing Bee episode 3, you'll see that some people pulled their elastic too tight. And so I'm very happy with how it wraps over the bust. You don't need to pin it. You don't need a press stud. You don't need anything. And it stays in place. So really, really happy with it. I was thinking that the ties weren't very flat and that must have been thinking about it when I was asleep, and that I would need to top stitch them down. But when I looked at it this morning, I thought, oh, that actually doesn't need top stitching down. I was thinking it was round like a sausage, but it's not. So the pattern, let's get on to the pattern. So I made the size 16, which is a bust 38 inches or 97 centimetres. A waist 30 inches or 76 centimetres, and hips 40 inches or 102 inches. And I was thinking that because I'm short and very short from the shoulders to the waist, I was thinking that I was going to have to shorten the bodice. But once I cut out the pattern pieces, because this is the size 8 to 16, so I was able to cut it out, because if I needed to make it for someone smaller, I've got the pattern pieces there. There weren't any crossing over lines. So once I'd cut out the pattern pieces and I tried it on my mannequin, I thought, oh, that bodice is actually not really long. And in the photos, it looks like it's on their waist. And in this, it looks like it's on their waist. So I was happy to leave the bodice as it was, knowing full well in a wrap dress that if you needed to take a bigger seam allowance on the bodice section, you could do that, but didn't need to. It actually fits perfectly at my waist. So that's the belt there, and that's my waist there. So really happy with the fit. But I don't think I would have got the good fit in the crossover that you get by having that a bit of elastic in it. It's just a bit of clear elastic like you would use in swimwear, but I think it's made all the difference. Even though this is a 1970s pattern, and I was sewing in the 70s, yes, I am that old, it has you, it's supposed to have a facing. So here are your pattern pieces, and there's your front facing and your back neck facing. But what they have you do is, let's see from this here, they have you interface the actual garment rather than the facing. So I certainly was not going to do that. I would never put interfacing on an actual garment if it had a facing, unless it was a stabilizing tape that I use sometimes. So that was really odd, because I can't recall that ever being the case when I was sewing in the 70s. I know that there's so many more modern techniques now compared to what we used to have, but I just thought it was a bit odd. And I don't think I would have got this to wrap over as well if I had used the facings. There's no way it would come in under your bust like that, and that's what stops this part here from gaping, because although it's low cut, you can't really see anything. So I can probably see more than anybody else because I'm looking straight down the front, but really happy with it. I did make the sleeves 8 centimeters shorter because I didn't want them to be really, really long. So if I wanted them to be at my wrist, I would have only had to make them 4 centimeters shorter, but I didn't want them really long. And how I attached this elastic was, I'll take the dress off and show you. So I've just popped my wool cashmere dressing gown on. So let me show you the inside of this neckline. Now, they had you sew the seams and overlock the seams. And of course, the side that the tie goes through, because you've got to have a little hole for the tie to go through, they wanted you to have that seam open, but because it's quite a medium / heavy, well, it's a ponte. So because it's not a really lightweight fabric or an ITY knit, I decided that I would do all open seams and just overlock all the edges of them. So that's how the inside of that looks. And I did put the little label that came with the box in there. So you can see the edge of the elastic there. I just zigzagged that elastic on and then cover stitched the facing down. So my cover stitch machine behaved perfectly for the whole thing. I cover stitched the fronts, and I cover stitched the hem and did a mitered corner. There's a mitered corner in there. And every seam is an open seam. I just thought, well, that's not true. The centre back of the skirt is not. So the skirt and the top are a separate piece. And because the skirt's a little bit flared, probably harder to see on that, easier to see on the line drawings, the skirt's quite flared, especially for me, but really happy with how it sits. Now, when you do a wrap dress, you need to leave a space for the tie to go through in the side. So there's my space there for my tie to go through. And so you make that space, make sure your tie is going to fit through it. Make sure it's not too big so that you can see skin through that space. It does tell you how big to make it, but quite frankly, after I started it and I decided I was not going to do the facings, I was going to do the elastic, I just made up how to make it because I've made wrap dresses before, so it's pretty similar. So I just top stitched with Mariflex thread around there. Now I used Mariflex thread on the top and on the bobbin because I thought, well, that section might actually get a little bit stressed by the time you poke the tie through lots of times, because I do plan on wearing this. Overall, very happy with the result. Now this fabric is the Marilyn Monroe from the Femme Fatale box from the Dahlia Society. It's a beautiful fabric, and I'm sure Kristen still had some of this in stock. It's a lovely weight, and it's really, really warm. Could wear a petticoat under it. I don't. Most petticoats I've got might be a little bit fitted in the bust, and so it might make your bust like that, whereas I actually want it separated like what your bra does. So if I was going to wear a petticoat, I'd just probably wear a half slip. I've got a black half slip, so I'd probably just wear that with it. Really happy with the length. There were two lengths. There's obviously the long one and this length, and it comes over the top of my boots, which is what I wanted it to be. And I have got some black fur there that I want to make a coat in, and I'm going to make sure the coat is the same length as the dress. I really don't like it if your coat's here and your dress is there. It just looks weird to me. You might as well wear a short coat if you're going to do that. Just wear a coat that only goes to your waist or your hips, like a car coat length. That is my adventure with the Diane von Furstenberg wrap dress Vogue 2060. I have noticed that there are a lot of different ones. There's more than just the 2000. So V2000 is the woven one, but it's also the one where you can do the collar and you can do fancy turn-up French cuffs, which does look nice too. But I'm very, very happy with this. That's the label that I got in my bespoke box as well. But yeah, so you can see the elastic's not tight. You can see there how much it pulls it in. Probably a little more up the top than. So getting the tension on that elastic is probably the main thing. Now the seam allowances were 5/8 of an inch or 1.5 centimeters. So if you had elastic that was 1.5 centimeters wide or even 1.3 centimeters wide, and you butted it up against the edge of the fabric, zigzagged it on, when you turned it over, it would probably be in exactly the right place. I butted mine up against it, and so my turnover in the front is only 1 centimetre like my elastic. And I knew it was going to be like that, but I thought it might give me more coverage in the front, which is in a wrap dress, the biggest issue is gaping. And so really happy with this. And I would certainly recommend the pattern. I just wouldn't recommend the sewing method. So thank you to my subscriber who sent me an email and a link for the Great British Sewing Bee episode 3, and it's the 2025, and it's the one that's on now, because it changed the way I was going to make this. Because I did think, oh, if it doesn't work out, I'll just take that elastic off and then put the facings on. I had enough fabric to make facings, although this does use a fair bit of fabric. I've got hardly any left, and I had 3 meters. I remember it's Ponte, so it's wide. So it does use a fair bit of fabric, but really glad that I didn't put the facings on, because I don't think I would have had the same result. I don't think it would have hugged in at the bust, which means that you've either got to put a press stud on it or pin it or something like that, which isn't ideal. I'd just be able to prefer to put it on and not have to look down all the time and worry that you're flashing someone. Because honestly, nobody wants me to flash them. I'm just a bit old now. So, yeah, cover stitch the sleeves. A really nice pattern. And when I was at Spotlight yesterday, because I've just come back from Melbourne, so of course I have to go to Spotlight, and I did look to see if they had the 2000, even though I may not make it. I just wanted to have it because it's an iconic vintage pattern. So the smaller size is the 8 to 16, and they only had they don't even have a crossover. They don't have 16 to 24 or whatever it is. They have 18. So ends at 16, starts at 18. Whereas other patterns will have a little crossover section, especially if you're going to do grading. That's great. Yeah, so I didn't buy it because they only had the big size there. But one day I will get it. So I hope you like this dress as much as I do. I will put the details down below. I think the other day, Kristen still had some of this fabric left. And this was called the Marilyn, and there's a darker one, whereas instead of the white part, it's sort of charcoal colour, which is actually really nice too. That's the Ava. Yes, and it's really a midweight Ponte. It says it is cotton poly spandex jacquard knit. That's why it's lovely. It's lovely because it has a bit of poly in it. So a little bit of poly in things makes them really, really warm. I hope you enjoyed that, and try and get on to the Great British Sewing Bee and watch episode 3 so you can see them putting the elastic in this. A much better method than the facings. That's all I can say. Thank you very much to my subscriber, because I think you made this dress work out really well, much better than it would have if I had tried to do the facings. Other than that, you could make a band out of a Ponte and stretch that on a bit. It would have the same effect, even though the band would be on the outside. It's another method of doing it. And if you don't have a cover stitch machine, be a really good idea if you used Mariflex thread. When you turned over your edge, be a really good idea to have Mariflex on that. And I will put some photos in of the quilt that I made the other day, the baby dinosaur quilt. People started saying, oh, you need to quilt around the castle and the dragons. Oh, not baby dinosaurs, baby dragons. And the baby dragons, so that when they wash it, it won't separate inside. So I did do that. I did stitch around lots of parts of the castle and lots of parts of the baby dinosaurs. It's hard to see it in the photos because I kept on changing thread colour. So I changed thread colour to whatever colour the baby dragon was and to match the castle as well. So I'll pop a couple of photos of that in, and the mum-to-be loved it, absolutely loved the quilt. So it's really a floor playmat because they don't use quilts anymore because babies sleep in sleeping bags, things. Yeah, so she absolutely loved the playmat. So thank you to everybody who commented on the baby dragon quilt and convinced me that I should be quilting around the dragons and the castle. The only thing I can say is I don't have a long arm machine. So to get the quilt, I kept on having to roll it up all the time to get it under there, but I managed to do it with no puckers, which I thought was pretty good. So now I know why I don't quilt everything like that, because you'd have to fit it under the machine. But I got there in the end. Please like and subscribe. Everybody have a fabulous sewing week, and tell me what you've made, and let me know if you have made the Diane von Furstenberg iconic wrap dress, whether you've made the knit or the woven, because I'd be very interested to see the woven. I think most photos are probably produced by Vogue, and so the girls are all 6 foot tall. They're not going to have any gaping in theirs. I'm just interested to know if there was gaping in the woven one, and if they get you to iron the interfacing onto the actual bodice rather than onto the facing. Seems a bit odd, but I knew that was the case before I got the pattern, because I'd read someone else's review of it. Might have been on Pattern Review. Everybody have a fabulous sewing week. Let me know what you're sewing. Let me know if you've sewn any of the Diane von Furstenberg iconic wrap dresses and how you went with it and what the fit was like. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.